So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about this case. This is my first small form factor, that's SFF build. It's the Lian Li and Dan A4-H2O. It's an 11 liter small form factor case that comes fully pre-built. I bought this one myself on AliExpress for $160 plus $15 in shipping. That includes a PCI 4 riser cable. At this price, to get into small form factor building, this is a really good option. I believe that it kind of gives you the best of the small form factor size, relatively easy to build in, but at the same time allows you to pick more of your components, unlike say the NZXT H1, which comes with a power supply, a CPU AIO, and a lot of the pre-wiring done for you. Something I didn't quite expect with this case is just how small it is. Like, I watched a lot of videos about building SFF PCs, and I'm a big fan of Optimum Tech, and I just really couldn't comprehend how small these cases are. To me, when I saw the review video for this on Optimum Tech, I got this feeling that it was kind of big. You know, a lot of people say, like, you know, truly small PC is under 10 liters, 11 liters just a little too big. Something about the fact that there's room for a full water-cooled radiator in the top here made me think that maybe it was a little too tall, but like, no, it's shockingly small. I mean, this computer is so small, and yet it still has room for a full-size CPU AIO. I'm running an EK Basic 240mm, and then I also have two Fantech T30 fans in here as well. Inside this computer case, this tiny computer case, I've got an AMD Ryzen 5 3600 CPU. I'm running two of the Trident Z Royal 3600 megahertz DDR4 RAM. I've got two NVMe SSD drives. One is on the back side of the motherboard, the other is on the front side, and concealed by this plate down here, supposedly helps with cooling. Oh, of course, on the other side, we have a 3090 FE graphics card that fits in here. And it's actually easier to get in than I thought. There's this big opening you can just slide the card into. It's really easy. So once you pull this off, you just slide the card in, and then you just set it in place and attach it to the PCIe riser. Now you might be wondering, what the heck is this doing here, this big piece of tape? Well, something that I discovered in my testing with this computer is that the thermals of the GPU get a little hot. Now, it's not in any territory necessarily where I'm worried about thermal throttling, especially not with a good undervolt, but it definitely was hotter than I would like, and the room that I game in is kind of a small room, and like, if I can make the thermals any better for any reason, I'll take it. By putting this here, you're not allowing the air to kind of pool up and form there. It puts constriction on the airflow from the side so that the radiator is forced to suck more of the air out the top. Now, I wish that there was a way that I could easily pull the radiator off to show you the two T30s that are in here, but they just barely fit. Technically, the specification, they're technically like 2 or 3 millimeters too big for this case. But it works. You can squeeze them in there, they work. And you still have enough clearance that you don't have to worry about your cables getting caught up in the fans or whatever. This is an awesome case. Like, if you're someone who wants to build a small form factor case, you've got a large, like, 3-slot graphics card like the FE, and you want to still support water cooling for your CPU, this is it. This is the case. It's probably got the best instructions of any case I've ever built in, to be quite honest. Most cases come with pretty lackluster manuals. This one, very clear, tells you which order to install everything in, obviously well thought out, like someone has actually built in this case before. And you know, because it comes from Lian Li, that it's gonna be pretty good quality. Now, let's talk about the quality a bit too, because there are some small problems. Where's the piece? Okay. So, it's pretty hard to tell, but on the case here on the corner, you can see this is definitely powder coated. So this was painted. And the paint is very good, don't get me wrong. Like, clearly there's no constriction on the mesh or anything, but you can see on corners and stuff like that, there's just a tiny bit of paint that has come away just because it's painted and not anodized. I won't fault them on that because it is a very good paint job, and it doesn't seem to affect the airflow or anything, but it's something to keep in mind. It is not the highest quality case, but by no means is it a low quality case. I'm extremely impressed with the quality. So if this is your first small form factor build like it was mine, I have a couple of suggestions that I want to give to you. First off, give yourself a lot of time. I thought this was going to be like 1 or 2 hours, like a typical mid-tower build, you know, easy peasy, done. No, it took a lot longer than that. It took me almost 5 hours when everything was done because I made a couple of mistakes. So the first mistake that I made was I tried installing the power supply upside down. And that's because I read about certain people saying if you use the intake fan on the power supply to help pull heat away from the GPU, it'll keep the GPU cooler and that'll be fine. I've read a lot of stories about people killing their power supplies this way, and I don't recommend it. That being said, with an undervolt and a custom fan curve, even on an FE card that is exhausting gas to the back, you can absolutely get your graphics card to perform at a very good clock speed without overheating. My card almost never goes over 73 or 74 C for most of the games that I play. The most I've seen it push is 78, and even at that point, my case fans kick in enough to save it. Also, if you're going to be building an AMD build, do not get the X570i chipset. It's what I bought the first time. I spent a lot of time installing it, and the chipset fan that comes with it is so loud. Some of the manufacturers, apparently Gigabyte, will let you change the curve a bit, but I would pass altogether because it spins constantly at 5,000, 6,000 RPM, and it overpowers anything else with what is actually a pretty quiet PC. So this hobby is by no means cheap, but I would say that this PC case is probably one of the better sort of budget options for getting into small form factor building. The only thing is that these cables that come with the Corsair, they're pretty flexible compared to most power supply cables, but they're very long and they are very hard to fit in here. And mine are definitely jammed up against the bottom. I had to like screw them shut, and they are just basically being held in place by the bottom panel. If you can, buy some custom power supply unit cables because they will make a huge difference in your cable management as well as your airflow when you're not blocking a bunch of your case with a bunch of cables. Also, when it comes to your GPU, take your time tuning it. There are some really good guides online, and there's some great Discord communities, I'll link them down below, that helped me out dialing in my card. I'll do a separate video on that because I feel like I could easily talk 10 minutes about how I tuned it. But basically, you're going to want to play with the fan curves. You're going to want to split the fan curves on an FE card, front and back, into separate ones. And you're going to want to undervolt. Otherwise, the card's just going to run way too hot. The fans are going to spin up way too loud. It's going to be a very loud PC. Because surprisingly, this PC, after everything is said and done, is actually quieter under load than my P400A, which tells you that I did not take enough time, nearly enough time, to tune my setup with my P400A. There was clearly a lot more room to modify and optimize it. But the fact that I took all the time to do it with this, I am so happy with this PC. It's small, it's portable, it runs really great. At no point do my thermals for either the CPU or the GPU go over 80C, which is well below the throttling era. Well, I guess for the GPU, the throttling happens around 83 or 84C. But for the CPU, it's like 90. And it's fantastic. I love this PC. It's been so much fun building in this. If you have questions about building in a small form factor PC, or you want to know more about my setup, go ahead, drop a comment down below, and get subscribed to the channel. I'm going to have more content on PCs and how to tune it coming in the near future. Thanks for watching.